And we're back. Good morning from the office, North Georgia's only live online morning show. I am BKP, and I'm happy to be joined this morning with Fannin County Chief Magistrate Judge candidates. To my left is Danette Davis, and to the left of her is the current magistrate, Sherry Walker. Just before we get started, Mr. Jones was invited and cited scheduling conflicts and is not able to be here, but all candidates were invited to be with us this morning. Lonnie, I don't know which pair of glasses to wear, so I'm confused on this. I'm sorry. I know this sounds, maybe I should explain myself because they're looking at me like, okay, you got pairs of glasses. And I won't sing to you because Lonnie says I can't sing. We didn't bring music. And I get text messages saying, please do not sing. Ladies, thanks for being with us at this time. We're going to take a couple minutes and there's a lot of voters. Sometimes we seem to think, including myself, like, you know, everybody knows us. But there's a lot of voters that don't really know the candidates, and what I like to do is get together with you and get an opportunity maybe for voters that don't have an avenue to find out who the candidates are, a little bit about them, give them that opportunity. Danette Davis, why don't you start and open up? Tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background, and why you're running for office.
Okay. Again, I'm Danette Davis, candidate for Chief Magistrate Judge. I am running for this position because there's a lot of reasons, but I'm definitely very passionate about it. I served with the Magistrate Court of Fannin County for 18 years. I began working there at the age of 16 for the first ever magistrate. And that was in 1987. Then I served as the deputy clerk. In 1989, Judge Ronald Newton was elected, and in 88, and then he took office in 89. He appointed me to serve as his clerk, and I did so until, for well over 16 years, I guess. And then in 2004, he appointed me as an associate magistrate judge. So I have the experience from almost the ground floor of the establishment of the magistrate court. It began here in Georgia in 1985. So I went to work there about a year and a half later. So I definitely believe and feel that I'm very capable, very passionate, and I'm 45 years old. I've lived in Fannin County my whole life. I have one son. His name is Cash Brucker. He's 8 years old, and he attends East Fannin Elementary. My parents are Wendell and Inez Davis. My father actually served as Fannin County's tax commissioner for over 34 years. And he definitely set an example before me that I believe I understand the duties and the obligations of being a good public servant. And I have my grandmother here, 92 years old, who still keeps her home place over in Mineral Bluff. And I love my community and have a lot of roots here, and that, I guess, sums it up for the moment.
Thank you very much. Sherry Walker, a little bit from yourself, some background, a little bit of who you are, and you are the current magistrate judge at this time, so maybe tell us a little bit about the office.
Okay. As he stated, I am the current magistrate judge, chief magistrate judge here in Fannin County. I began my career in 2005 in the magistrate court after Danette, of course, had resigned and vacated her position. I filled the vacancy that came available in the court and worked with Judge Newton 10 years prior before his death. I'm currently knowledgeable on the laws and the procedures there in the court. And to begin with, I was appointed by the Superior Court judges. There were 12 candidates that applied for the position, and after all candidates were considered, I was selected by the 3 Superior Court judges to serve the remaining term of the late Judge Newton, and have served that term for 2 years.
Okay, well, let me ask you, out of the 12, there were 12 applicants. So,
Right.
and I think we all know Judge Newton was tragically killed, and you had a lot. Let me go back to you just a little bit, because that really stung the community. How did you manage to get the office back running, efficient? How did you guys get over that? I mean, how did you work through that? Because that was very tragic in the community.
That was very tragic, though very unexpected. It's very devastating, and it creates a judicial emergency. We pulled together as employees there in the magistrate court, and we were very well trained by Judge Newton. Had the utmost respect for him. We knew how that office should be ran and how he would have wanted that office ran. So we moved forward with that. It's very devastating when something like that happens to the community and to an office. It really hits home. So you just pull together and get through that. And like I say, we knew how he wanted that office ran. So we moved forward with that, with everything that he taught us, and just managed to get through that. It's very hard going back. Of course, we're not there for about a week, and the Superior Court judges handled the situation very, very well. We had judges fill in for us during that time to make that transition. It went very smoothly. They handled the situation very well. So, and we just moved forward after everything was done and made that office work. We knew that's what happened.
Ms. Davis, out of the 12, were you one of the 12 applicants?
Yes, sir, absolutely.
So because what the protocol is to take applications, and then the Superior Court judges came together, I guess, and voted on the continuing or representing, and you applied for that?
Yes, I did. There's something that Ms. Walker stated a couple of minutes ago about her filling my vacancy when I resigned from the court. I feel that I need to clarify something there. When I made the decision to leave the court in 2005, it was the hardest thing I had ever done, because that's all that I knew. And I loved what I did, and I was very dedicated. But I had an opportunity to spread my wings and pursue a business opportunity. And I went in with a partner and successfully developed a 50-acre tract of property and began building homes here. Of course, that was a wonderful experience for me. Of course, the market turned, as we all know, a few years later. That was, I've just learned a lot through that process. But getting back, I'm trying to explain why I left. But I gave Judge Newton a 60-day notice. I wanted to make sure that I left the court whole, because I held 2 sworn positions with the court. I was the clerk, and therefore that had to be filled. That position was filled by a young lady named April Ledford, who had been working there for about the prior 18 months before my departure. My position as assistant magistrate was filled by Mr. Russell Johnson. He still serves as magistrate judge with Ms. Walker today. So I just felt that needed to be clarified. Ms. Walker was hired, and another lady, I believe if memory serves me correct, her name was Jennifer Evans, and they both were hired at that time as deputy clerks. So I just want to make that clear.
Well, let me ask you a question. At the time you took over, you were the assistant to the Chief Justice. Is that you were assistant magistrate at the time of Mr. Newton's death?
Oh, no, I was a deputy clerk.
Deputy clerk.
Yeah, and just to clarify, I never stated at any point in time, just so we have everything clear for the record also, I never took over. Ms. Davis was the chief clerk in the office at the time she did resign. I was hired in as a deputy clerk. I was never hired in as a chief clerk. I was hired in as a deputy clerk, just to clarify that also. And I was not an assistant or associate, which is technically incorrect. There are magistrate judges, not assistants or
Well,
associates.
at that time, I don't mean to interrupt, at that time, that position was called assistant magistrate. It's no longer that way in Georgia. I understand that.
Yes,
But for the
that's
purpose
correct.
of clarifying what it was at that point in time, it was called assistant magistrate.
I think it would be fair to say that both of you have an extensive background in the court. I think it'd be fair to say both of you have. So that being said, both of you have put a lot of time into the court. Why do you think when you applied and one of the 12, why might you think, I don't know, that they didn't go with you when they made the appointment? Is there, I mean, any
There was
thought?
no explanation given.
There's no explanation?
So I can't speak for what the 3 Superior Court judges, what their decision was based on. I wasn't given an explanation, and I know some of the other people who did apply, and you know, they told me basically the same thing. So who's to say that respectfully, so that was their choice to make, but we would have to ask them to explain. But I had seen some literature that Ms. Walker had posted at Dairy Queen on a candidates board, and then in the forum at the Chamber of Commerce, she did state that she filled my vacancy when I vacated the court. So I feel, and I don't mean that she intentionally was trying to be misleading, but I feel that's important because, you know, this is a very important position. There are vast responsibilities, and you need to pay attention to detail. And, you know, you need to be observant, patient, and a good listener, and you have to keep the facts straight.
Well, let me give Ms. Walker an opportunity to respond to some of that. And let's go in the direction that Ms. Davis basically has said there's a lot of responsibilities. Tell us some of the responsibilities that the magistrate court has on a daily basis. What are some of the kind of cases you hear? And since you have taken the position as chief magistrate judge, how is the flow of the court and the services to the citizens?
Okay. The service to the citizens is going very efficiently. We don't, and I don't like to use the word backlog, but we have no cases that are backlogged. I keep the court flowing. I usually hold court once a week based on the type of cases that we get and what is specified by the law that's required to set those cases up within the length of time. So I do hold the court once a week, usually Wednesdays and every third Tuesday. So that's worked out very well. On a daily basis, we handle all civil cases that do not exceed $15,000 there in the court. And we handle criminal jurisdiction also. And on a daily basis, what I do is the accused persons that are being held in jail, I do give them initial appearance on a daily basis, setting bonds, consider their histories and the crimes that have possibly been committed. What I do is look at their criminal history, take that into consideration, advise them of their rights, their constitutional rights, the right to remain silent, and to the right to a preliminary hearing if they feel they need a preliminary hearing in the matter. Also, their right to an attorney. So that I do that every day. They're entitled to that initial appearance hearing. So that's a requirement by the court, the judge there in the magistrate court.
Let me ask you one other question, and then I'm going to give you an opportunity to respond to the services within the magistrate judge. But Ms. Walker, Your Honor, how do you feel it's going with your relationship with law enforcement? Because actually, magistrate court does deal with the district attorney. You do deal with the chief of police of cities, the sheriff's office. GBI, whatever. So how do you feel that's going since you've taken the position, your relationship with law enforcement?
Well, I've kept the same rapport that I could with the officers, any in the DA's office, with any office within the courthouse there that we've had prior. So we work very efficiently together, and when the officers come to the court to take out their warrants, they have all their facts based on their probable cause. They're on the scene, so they're presenting that to me. I'm the in-between person that would actually go to. Once they have all that information together, we issue the warrants based on their probable cause.
So following up on that, Ms. Davis, what would your relationship be, and how do you feel the services within the magistrate's office are going? What changes would you make? A little bit inside the magistrate's office that you see how it would work if you were the magistrate.
Well, with my past experience, I've always had great working relationships with the other entities as the DA's office goes. We're very, you interact with all the local law enforcement agencies, on a daily basis practically. I've never worked along with the clerk of court a lot. Never had an issue with that. I think my record would prove that, and anyone that worked with me, went very smoothly. As far as change, there are a few things that that I'd like to look into. I'm not saying that as far as what Miss Walker, how she's operating the court, I don't have anything bad to say about that. I've not had to utilize the court under, and you're fortunate if you don't have to utilize the services of the magistrate court, because if you do, you most likely have a problem of some sort. A lot of folks aren't aware of what goes on in the magistrate court because, if you're not suing someone or being sued or potentially trying to obtain a warrant against someone, or if you've not been arrested, you might not have any clue. But I just feel so passionate, and I enjoy serving, and I like people. I like to be helpful. So therefore, the voters are going to make this choice this time. And, sometimes it's just a matter of, like you say, the voters just kind of have to get to know the candidates the best that they can. And if they're in the end, it's going to be up to them.
Well, let me ask you this question, and I'll also give you the same opportunity to respond, Ms. Walker. Now, in magistrate court, it's the people's court. Because there's a lot of times that you hear cases that you don't see an attorney. People represent themselves. And what I have found in magistrate court several times sitting in there is a judge has to balance not giving legal advice, but gingerly taking people through process that they might not be aware of how things work. They might not have been aware they should have filled this out before they came to court. Mm-hmm. They may not be aware that they had the right to bring a person in or whatever. How do you feel? Do you feel you have the people skills, I guess, to say, to work with the people that come before you? Because it is the people's court.
Absolutely. And, you do have a lot of pro se litigants that are going to come into the court, and they need help to an extent. But, the definition of legal advice, there's a fine line there sometimes, but you definitely want your clerks to understand that they can't. They can't be leading. They can't give a person an advantage, one litigant an advantage over another by saying, fill this form out this way or file this particular action. But there is basic information that you can help. I wrote up about a 5-page document years ago, and we gave it out all the time, that explained the procedures and the processes, and it gives people some guidance without, you're not representing them, but there is an amount of help that you must give. We're elected to be there to serve the people, and like you say, so many people don't have money they can't afford an attorney.
I guess then also what I'm asking is, sitting on the bench, when citizens come before you and they don't really understand, they just feel somebody owes them money or feels they were wronged in some way. I guess, do you have the patience to work with the people as they're trying to present their case?
Absolutely. I'm very patient, and of course, you always want to thoroughly hear. Of course, you can't tell someone how to present their case, but you can definitely, as far as the, as a judge, you definitely can't get too involved, but you have to be patient with folks. And I feel that what's important to people, they want to be heard. They want to make sure that you're listening to them. And then you have to apply the law, and a lot of times common sense practice goes along with that. And you have to make your decision the best that you can based on the evidence brought before you. But you sure can't tell them how to get the evidence or hey, you need to do this or that. So, but I'm definitely patient with people and willing to sit through that and hear. And sometimes, it's painful for folks. But like I say, we are there to serve, and we must be helpful to the extent that we're not crossing the boundaries.
Ms. Walker, let me take that in a different direction, but stay on the same topic. When you were thrust into this chair, and it's the only way we can really put it, is just one day, here we go. How have you done coming through the time that you have served as the Chief Magistrate? I'm very strong myself saying this is the people's court, all of them are the people, but this is where the actual people come in, the citizens come in. And so many times you have seen citizens represent themselves. Mm-hmm. They don't understand all the legalese, but they know what they're trying to say. How have you been patient with them, and how has that worked with you?
Well, we don't want people to be intimidated by the magistrate court. Like you said, that was intended for the lay public. You do not have to have an attorney in that court, but if you choose to hire an attorney, you can do that. And a lot of people sometimes when they're in the courtroom, they don't know how to present their case. Well, of course, I as the judge can't tell them how to do that. I can explain the process to them. They can begin with their opening statement. At the time, they will be given an opportunity to call witnesses and present their evidence. And then at the time at closing, they can do their closing statement and convince the court why they feel I should rule in their favor. So we can't give legal advice, but we can walk them through the step of the process of how to make them feel a little bit more comfortable in the courtroom with that. It's a very informal process. So.
Well, I just have to say it's been a couple months back, but in a different county, I had a situation in a magistrate court, and I'm not an attorney, and I was talking to the judge, and the judge said, are you making a motion? I don't know, am I? So, that's why I'm very, very much, it is the people's court.
Yes.
You do have people come and they're explaining, and they don't realize they're making a motion or whatever.
Exactly.
Let's say this, because you are, and we're gonna wrap up here in a minute, but you are the sitting judge at this time. Both of you are from here, correct?
I am.
Both of you. Mm-hmm. Are you finding many situations where you have to recuse yourself from cases, or how many cases have you had to call in a visiting magistrate?
That's interesting that you should ask that, because I think that issue's come up just a little. It's hard. There are 159 counties in the state of Georgia, and each one of those counties does have a chief magistrate judge. In the larger counties, you do run into that situation where people are not familiar with the public as much. They don't know as many people. For us in North Georgia, it's a little bit harder because we do know a lot of people in the community and stuff.
Right.
I have not had to recuse myself from a lot of the cases. Of course, there was a transition period there that I did have to recuse myself in 2014 from a couple of the cases because I had actually sat in with Judge Newton on some of the cases because I was his court clerk at the time. And so I felt like it was fair to the citizens, to the plaintiff and the defendant in those cases that I did not hear those cases, just knowing too many facts on those. So there was a transition period there that I did recuse myself from a couple of the cases that were carried over. But you don't run into that very much, but there are reasons why you would need to recuse yourself. The plaintiff can make that motion, the defendant can make that motion, the attorneys can make those motions. Us as judges also can make those motions if we feel that we can't hear those cases and be fair with them.
But if you feel in any way there's a conflict, you would immediately recuse yourself?
Yes.
Okay, you're from here. And the reason I bring that up is because I think she makes a valid point. When you're from here and it's a smaller county, you tend to have brother-in-laws and uncles and friends and people you went to school with, whatever the case may be. How would you look at recusing yourself, and do you feel that could come up in your term?
Well, it absolutely comes up from time to time. Definitely if someone's your uncle or your cousin or your best friend or any time. But you can't, you're going to know lots of folks. You always, of course, want to refrain if there's a situation that you always want to avoid the appearance of impropriety. If someone is going to be doubtful and think, well, I know Danette graduated high school with that person and they have an issue with it, but in a small town you're not going to be able just to say, well, I know them.
Right.
It's got to be a much closer related type situation, or like you say, if you've learned about the facts of a case or someone, came in and discussed it with you, you're definitely going to have to recuse yourself. But being a judge, you do the right thing. If you try to be fair, like I say, you're going to know some of the folks that come before you that can't be avoided. But you only, there are moments when, yes, you absolutely need to recuse yourself, but you hope to avoid that as much as possibly can. Like I said, if there's any question, it's going to create a question in somebody's mind. Remove yourself, because perception is reality in this world, and you don't want to create any type of doubt that someone would think that you had been biased in a situation.
Well, ladies, I thank you. We put aside 30 minutes, and we've done that. It's 8:45. Before we close, I am BKP. Good morning from the office. And we've been here this morning in Fannin County, and we're currently talking with Chief Magistrate Judge candidates, Danette Davis and Sherry Walker. Just to let you know, Brian Jones was invited. All candidates were invited this morning. So before we go to commercial, we're going to give both these candidates a brief opportunity to speak directly to you, the voters, and make a brief closing statement. We'll start with you, Ms. Davis. Say goodbye to the voters, and what would you like to say to them?
Well, good morning. I would just like to say to you, early voting has started. I think that runs through Friday, May 20th, if I'm correct, and of course the election is the 24th. I just sincerely ask that you put, and I know you will, if you care to vote, you're going to put your true thought and consideration into it. If I'm honored with being elected as the next Chief Magistrate, I believe that I can inspire the confidence of the citizens of Fannin County that they have made the right choice, and I will work hard to do that. And always just do my best to be fair, thorough, and patient. And thank you very much.
Ms. Walker?
Thank you so much for being here this morning. I'm honored to be here also. Just remember, I have served as your Chief Magistrate here in Fannin County for the last 2 years. I'm very knowledgeable on the laws and the procedures of the court, and your support would be greatly appreciated. It has been a wonderful and a great honor and privilege to have served as the Chief Magistrate Judge here in Fannin County. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, candidates. And we always say here at FetcherNews.com, we thank you and we wish both of you well, and we thank you for your willingness to serve your community. Okay? Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go to break, and right after these messages, right after these brief messages, we're going to get in and start talking about Fannin County Commission Chair. So BKP@FetcherNews.com, and you can send me messages here at 706-889-9700 or email me chief@FetcherNews.com. And again, we've been talking to magistrate candidate judges, candidates for Chief Magistrate Judge of Fannin County. I'm your host, BKP, and we'll be back after these brief messages. Lonnie, take us to break.